Storm from Trimby, a possibility as he dives in. The flash forward as well as Closer has to flash away, but already Vladdy's down and Targamas is next on the menu. Flakked flashing the wall and there's two.
Look on that.
Look, yeah.
Talia is dead. Okay, play on Nautilus 2. Play on Nautilus 2. We win,
guys, as well. Better looted, but don't overstay.
I'm fine. Yeah. Look, can for Aatrox.
I wanna chase. Kill the Aatrox. Look here, Talia.
Just
And welcome back to the Marriott Bonvoy post-game check-in with Flakked, who scored his second win here in summer. Okay, Flakked, you're gonna cosplay your coach. You're going backstage right now, giving feedback to your player. What would you say about the game?
I mean, if I was the coach, I would say, why the hell did this game last almost 40 minutes instead of like 25? Because we were like really ahead. But I'm really like, you know, like optimistic guy as well. I would just say a win is a win. We have more time to fix more stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would probably, you know, like drop a bit of flame. All right, but a merciful coach, still nice to the player. So because you're being nice to the player, I'm gonna award you the Kia Player of the Game, Flakked. Nice. Do you think it's deserved with the performance you had? I mean, it's not like I mean, both teams we kind of didn't like play much, right? It was like really a slow game. But I guess I had like a lot of damage because like it was like kind of free for me to deal damage. So I mean, yeah, I'm kind of happy that GIANTX didn't steal it this time around. I guess he was on Maokai duty. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like deserved, but like if you need to give it to someone, it's probably me. Yeah. Talking about the improvements and everything, you know what you guys want to make better, but do you know how to get there? What are the leads to improve for you guys? What are you working on? I mean, we're kind of working still on being on the same page, because like in game we have like different ideas, like bot lane with the side lanes, and like especially on mid game, I think is our biggest weakness right now. So yeah, I think we of course we know how to play the game. We know like the macro stuff. We just need to be on the same page and decide what do we want to do. All right. Because yeah, I mean, I can probably watch this game after, and our mid game is gonna be a bit cringe, but it is what it is. It's fine. You're going to make it better tomorrow. Focusing on the game we have next, actually, G2 is on stage. They're about to play. And we need to settle this, because for the past 2 years, BB has been telling me that it's his pause. You've been telling me that it's your pause. So whose pause is it? Can we settle this right now? Who created this? It's my pause for sure. All right. BB is just a fanboy. I love him so much, but this is the hard reality he has to face. He's, you know, like jealous of my pose. He saw me doing it on a media day, and he was like, I need to take it from this guy. It's like too much aura, you know? What a fun And yeah, I mean, it's a bit cringe, but yeah, I mean, up to this day, he's still fighting for, you know. Well, I'm glad we got to the bottom of this, Flakked. Thank you so much. Your pose is back to be yours now. Good luck tomorrow. Thank you so much. On the game. And back to you guys at the desk for the last game.
Thank you so much. We've got Zwyroo here as well, because we are going to talk about Caps versus Jackies, G2 versus GIANTX. Now, the thing is with G2, they started really, really badly last week. They went 1-2, which is out of the ordinary, I think, for them. And we think that Caps actually didn't have the best week. I'd love to know what you thought. I fully agree. I think G2 is a bit not in shape. I mean, I think every one of us understands it. Like, they were at MSI. It's hard, you need break and stuff like this, but I think for now they are not in the shape. Okay, so you think Jackies is actually in a better shape right now? I would say so. I mean, you can never like say this, because maybe Kat wake up today and then he stomps him. But if I had to say, I think Jackies is probably in a better shape right now. What is Jackies good at? At Varus.
So ban Varus and you're good to go.
That's hilarious.
No, I kind of agree with that sentiment as well. I also just think that if you were to tell me who's the better mid laner, we're always going to say Caps. But if we only look at week 1 isolated, it has to be Jackies. While he's on GX right now, he's just been a bit stuck. I feel like, or at least you can say that he's the light in the darkness that's kind of around with GX. So I'm really hoping that we see the rest of GX stepping up to the task to allow Jackies to shine, because he's been doing very well recently. Yeah. I just wanted to say they were trying to level 3 Sejuani to let him light. They didn't work. That is very true. Just saying, they were trying, didn't work.
Yeah, maybe. You said it though about Caps, right? It's hard to say that he's not doing well for a while because it's normal for players to go like up and down, right? So if Caps is on his peak, what is the hardest thing about playing versus him, you think?
I think if he plays like, let's say, example, Tristana, there is no fear in him. Everywhere he jumps. He trades like a maniac. I think it's a good thing and bad thing, depending like how much you know your matchup. But I think that's like he's pushing to the limits and he's pushing you to do mistake.
Yeah.
So I think that's the best thing about him.
I also feel like watching Jackies, I mean, Odo said it as well, he's like a little psychopath sometimes in the way he plays.
Is. And I think it's kind of the same, right? Where I just think that Caps is just a way more experienced player. He's been around for longer. He's been limit testing in solo queue when everybody hated him back then and still is to some extent nowadays. But it's the fact that Jackies is still young and he's still trying to go for the same outplays. But sometimes he's missing the mark. But as we've already discussed, right, he hasn't been missing the mark in week 1. He has been stepping up. So isolated today, the mid lane matchup should be very exciting to watch because you're watching a Caps that's been in a slump and you're watching a Jackie who's on a high-end trajectory. So no one really knows what's going to happen in the mid lane today.
Yeah. Do you think overall it is, you know, we're looking at Caps for G2, it feels like all of them are not really playing the way they usually do, but for GIANTX, I feel like Jackie really is such an X factor for that team that if he does well, they have a much better chance, where I think in G2, I feel like the whole team's gonna come back online, so to say. Is that fair or is that unfair to the other GX members?
I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's just fair. Like, I think Jackie is probably their best player. I think that if they play around him, maybe he can carry. I think it's unlikely as well, because I think G2 is just a really good macro team. Even if they play like bad mechanics, like they get like they die on lanes, you know, stuff like this. Then comes macro game, they outplay you and you lose the game.
Yeah.
Like they have so many comebacks, you know, like they always win somehow.
Yeah. They always win somehow. I'm glad though that, you know, people always say we glaze them way too much, right? G2, and now we called out that they weren't doing well.
I mean, they feel like that because we're talking about teams when they're good, and it just happens to be that G2's often quite good at League of Legends here in the LEC.
It seems to happen. Anyways, thank you so much for your insight,
Thank you
both,
so much.
and let's see who wins this last game of the day.
Let's see who wins this last game of the day. Truer words have never been spoken. Afia, as we are into the action. Anyone who's just finished watching the Euros, welcome. This is the LEC, the pinnacle of European sports competition. I think, as G2 take on GIANTX.
If you just like forego all the Gaelic Athletic Association.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
sorry, I forgot about the GAR, my
yeah,
bad.
Yeah, it's all about the GAR.
When it sounds like someone's choking on a Dorito, I don't think your sport really has that much legitimacy, you know?
Hurling.
I do love hurling.
Yeah, it is so much fun. Fastest field sport in the world.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing about I think it's in hurling. One of the balls is called a schlitter.
Yeah.
That just amuses me.
The only ball is a schlitter.
It's called a schlitter. Anyway, there's League of Legends happening. Talia, Nautilus, and Nidalee are banned out by G2. Tristana and LeBlanc removed by GIANTX alongside the Vi. No real surprises in the first set of bans.
Well, there is, because no Skarner ban.
Oh, true.
And no Rumble ban.
Oh.
So this is going back to what we saw from game number 1 of today, which is the Skarner is going to be, well, it's actually the other way around. Rumble was taken into the Skarner, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Antonio get his hands on the Rumble, and it has been one of his picks outside of the tanks that we've looked at him for over the course of the first week of play, and he's going to grab that straight off the bat.
I'm just saying, it's G2. There's no way the Skarner's going top lane. Just no way that's happening.
So the thing is, you expect it to go either top jungler support, right? Yeah. So it's going to Caps.
First strike Skarner mid lane.
Yeah.
So true. Varus locked alongside the Rumble. No real surprises there. G2 likely to look towards their jungle AD. That's what we often see in this first rotation. There's the Lucian. Could go alongside the Nami if you wanted, but of course, Lucian Skarner. A combination you can play in the bottom lane. Not when Nami's locked.
I was going to say, that is going to be a funky bot lane. I don't know about that one.
I can see Mikyx pointing at Broken Blade being like, you're taking Nami top.
Yeah, yes. I mean, even look at the grid after, it's like, yeah, it is. On the upside, Maokai going to be picked up as well. So, again, we're kind of seeing this Maokai come in as a help into enabling AD carry champions mid, and we have seen Jackies already take the Varus in the mid lane, so there is a potential here that you actually just get a more bot lane bans from G2 on that bottom side to enable the Lucian Nami a little bit more, because with Senna still up and available, you could end up going for like something like Senna Ornn in that bottom side of the map and just trying to dissuade a lot of the early game aggression from the Lucian Nami.
You get rid of the kill threat, really, because Senna can sustain you. Ornn's tanky enough to tank up the initial damage from the Lucian and the Nami. So if you want to get rid of the Senna, this is the ideal moment to do it, G2, because you won't have any more moments after this one. Sejuani and Ivan taken away by GIANTX. Alistair and Rel removed by G2. So they're more thinking, we don't want Ignar on something he can engage really reliably on. That does make sense. And when you look at the AoE and the combination that GIANTX already have for team fights, it makes a lot of sense to try and get rid of some of those more huge team fight ultimates.
Yeah, I would really like the Senna pick here. I think you just set yourself up so well. Even if you want to try and go for a different pairing than the Ornn, I think you're in a good spot. But I'm actually going to take the Ashe instead. So maybe we get the Varus Ashe bot lane into the Lucian Nami, but you still keep that flexibility open, as we have seen over the course of last week. A lot more Ashe AD carries popping up as well.
And Senna has only won once in the LEC, the split, out of 6 games. It's Ice who won on it. Patrik did lose on it last week against Fnatic. So Ashe locked in, can of course still be Ashe Varus in the bot lane as well if you want to go double Halo Blades and go towards that, old school, I say old school, like 3 months old combination that we saw. G2 now going to lock in their jungler in the form of Zhao and likely looking towards mid here, unless something truly, truly special has happened and that Skarner is being played by Caps in the mid lane.
If that is actually the case, we are actually prophets. But I think you probably go back towards his ear or something here, right? Just to keep yourself comfortable, make sure you're all okay. They don't really have the AP to go towards. I was about to say a Corki, but apparently they feel like they're going to be fine.
Who needs magic damage, man?
True.
You get a little bit of it from Ardent Sensor, from the Tidecaller's Blessing as well, from the Nami. And it's G2 deciding AD is the name of the game. GIANTX now looking towards mid. How do you deal with a Corki? Well, difficultly is usually the answer. Can just look for something that scales up relatively well. Could go for something like the Nico, but instead it's Varus mid, Ashe, Lulu in the bottom lane.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think Ashe can do a lot of work here in this bottom side, just being able to outrange, and it makes it very difficult for the trade pattern for Lucian Nami to work, because a lot of what you want to do as Lucian is dash in, get your auto attacks off, and then safely walk away. But Ashe, with the slows and outranging you, makes it very difficult to do so. And every time you try to dash in, you just get polymorphed by Lulu. So it becomes a very difficult trade pattern to try and play around. So GIANTX should have comfort in that bottom side. You've got decent setup coming through from the Maokai when it comes towards the engages. So a lot of this will be on G2 Esports to do what they've kind of done a lot, which is find creative ways to enter in these fights, because I feel like the front to back is actually going to be quite difficult for them to operate on.
Also very dependent on how Skarner gets into the fight and how the Crescent Guard is used, right? Because if a lot is thrown onto the Zhao as an initial engage from GIANTX, Crescent Guard comes up, then you have a lot of people closing that gap, which allows the Lucian time to really open up, which allows the Corki time to open up. So a bit of pressure on GIANTX to make sure they play the team fights effectively, and a lot of pressure on G2, because we talked a little bit about G2 struggling in week 1. It was kind of to be expected. We often have this MSI hangover, but that can extend into worse conditions. You have Intitus, you have lack of side lane itis, you have other things that I can't make up on the fly. But Intitus is the big one for G2. Yeah. They do struggle with it quite often.
Lack of synergy itis, I don't know.
If we just keep going itis, then it's not as good, right? You have CS anemia, the lack of ability to CS.
Okay.
You have neutral objective phobia.
What about just generally dying? Is that a medical term?
Rigor mortis. That's not dying, though.
It's
one of the stages of decomposition, which now I say it out loud, I realize perhaps is not the best thing to be talking about as we get on into the game.
I don't know, it's the end of the day.
It's true. With how long the games have been going, I think a few people have started going through the few stages of decomposition. But we are here for the final game, as you say. Dagda, G2 versus GIANTX, taking it to the Rift. And G2 are looking for their second win of the season. GIANTX still struggling to pick up the wins here in summer. And it looks like they are going to make their way down towards the bottom lane. A 4-man stack with Jackies hovering around mid. Going to get control of this second bush. Actually going to sneak in towards Hans Sommer here now. Hans has gone the first strike. Does he dash away quickly enough? He's hit by the volley. The chase will continue. Flame Spitter from the Antonio. Patrik I mean, you could flash Auto, but all that is a slow. Just keeps Hans Summer at arm's length. Now they'll gain control of this bot side jungle. Broken Blade pathing up towards the top side. Yike actually moving down towards his red to contest here, it seems.
This ward here at the bottom side, though, makes me think that it might actually, it's just behind the Lucian. They might be looking for some sort of lane swap, trying to spot out where the Lucian is. Juhan put that ward there, so are they actually, maybe they're just worried that the Lucian Nami would try and get out of this lane and go for some sort of lane swap, but it doesn't look like it at the moment.
And we have seen Lucian Nami's lane swap for 3. You know, you want to get your full combo online, and then you come back into the lane, and especially with the Antonio playing the Rumble, if you can set him behind in the early game, that's only a benefit for your team. Lane swap not going to happen, as you say, but the wards did spot out that from GIANTX, so they did their due diligence and made sure that they were going to be playing a respectful 2v2 in the bot lane.
Juhan, though, at least able to steal away a camp, so we'll be at least like down 1. Also, we'll set him up to hit a level 3 as he can maybe move in onto this bottom side. But again, these really nice wards coming through from Juhan to spot out exactly where Yike is going to be. But actually skip his red, go immediately onto the bottom side. But he's only cleared out 1 camp on the top end, so I think he's just a bit more worried about losing out to a potential invade from Juhan again on the bottom end.
I did see a ping onto Juhan as well. I can't see with the way the minimap's positioned if there is a ward on those Razor Beaks, but there was definitely a G2 ping coming in. Yeah, there is.
There you go.
There's a ward there. I couldn't see it. You know, his portrait was covering it, but that means both the junglers' early pathing is spotted out by their opponents. The Antonio is pushed in early on here by Broken Blade in the top lane. That upheaval can do a lot of work. You know, you grab a rock, you chuck it at your lane opponent, even using those empowered auto attacks as well, just to get the extra damage down, and the Antonio is losing the push early on.
Yeah, maybe getting a lot of push. Now going to go over the wall just to try and spot out if there is going to be any jungler there, which is very nice. And now knows that at least he should be able to clear this way, but Juhan is in the vicinity, so maybe as he hits 3 off this, wants to try and interrupt.
I mean, I would go top here as well. Like that Ishtar's impact, the E, that's a 20-second cooldown, level 1. So Broken Blade's not going to have it back up, but Juhan decides instead to path bot side. The Antonio obviously not calling for his jungler's aid in that moment. Broken Blade will proxy the wave. The Antonio will be able to farm all of these, so in the end only about a 2 CS difference. As Ignar stepped forward a little bit here, caught out with the ebb and flow. Hans Summer just chunks out the Lulu.
So the only reason I can think that Juhan didn't go to that top side was because he was trying to work off of a timing window on this bottom side. The wave is pushing out, and Patrik did get a reset, so maybe looking to punish Hans Summer and Mikyx as they push out. But even here, you can see he's been spotted now on a ward as he starts to enter in. And he's not going to be able to get down onto this bottom side to do particularly much. So I'm curious what timer Juhan is thinking of here that he's trying to work off of.
Maybe thinking that the Razor Beaks would be on their way back up spawning, but it's a little bit early for that as G2 begin to collapse and force the tree out of their jungle. There, the Razor Beaks coming in. It's just looking perhaps for the second spawn of those. Across the board, though, relatively even between these two teams 4 minutes in.
Yeah, because you definitely could have blown up that top lane matchup. The Rumble does quite well into the Skarner. You get a lot of poke with the Arcane Comet. And even I think we've seen some Skarners take the Arcane Comet in return, so you can just continuously poke with the upheaval and push the Rumble out of lane. But not going for the kill on that top side means that it's going to be kind of even Stevens a little bit. You can see Rumble getting a little bit of an advantage with the CS, but Juhan at least down here to cover as this wave starts to crash, as is Yike.
It's much ado about nothing. Both the junglers have kind of just been ships passing in the night in this game. No one really finding their mark as Yike makes some wind become lightning and forces Juhan away. Doesn't chase in with the audacious charge of the 3 talent strike, just hovering, as you say, to make sure this wave pushes in from his bot lane. And
what's the science behind that?
What, wind becoming lightning?
Yeah. Is it just like static?
I'm a doctor, not a meteorologist, man. Like, it's probably something to do with like as the air rubs against each other, it loses electrons or something.
Yeah.
Or electrons get discharged. Man, like, the problem is, I'm very good at bullshitting. That's the problem. And I felt like I needed to there. But there's so many more intelligent people in the world than me, and at least 2 or 3 of them listening to the LEC.
I'm just trying to bait you so that then they'll at you on X, and then it'll just fall down this rabbit hole, you know?
So true. It was the Gar comment firstly, I got the Irish mad, and now the meteorologists are coming for me.
It's a slippery road, man.
The problem is my ego dictates. If you ask me a question, I have to pretend I know what the answer is.
I'll just ask you like MTG questions or something. Make it easier.
Yeah, Dracos would get mad at me for those. We see Yike gonna get the Scuttle Crab. The Grubs are spawning in about a second's time. Drake up as well, but neither team really making those their first priorities here, Dagda.
I think the problem is Jackies needs to try and shove out mid before you can really come across this, and you've got the Scuttle Crab already picked up for G2, so this will be a bit risky for GX. Like, you will clear out top wave relatively easily here as Broken Blade. You hit 6. This is where you could look to fight, although looking at Caps, low on mana, he's going to go for the reset. So looks like GIANTX might have found a window there just off the mid lane mana pool.
They'd also brought their AD carry and their support down across to try and cover if anything did happen. The Equalizer very powerful, even if you only have a Doran's Ring to supplement its damage, and that will be 3 Grubs to GIANTX. Yike works his way down towards the bottom side of the map, but I don't expect we'll see a Drake trade for it too quickly.
It's a very different look from G2 though. And like, obviously everyone's talking about the, you know, taking time after MSI, but G2 was always a team that you felt like were consistently putting pressure onto the map, whether it's working off of pushing mid to roam bot to try and make a play, or, you know, unlocking Mikyx to try and make some plays elsewhere, but a much slower pace game. And I can kind of understand it where they're just like, hey, Hansam and Mikyx are at least in a decent spot here on the bottom side when it comes to CS. But I'd like to see Yike trying to get a bit more involved rather than just shadowing lanes to let them push.
I will say one of the key symptoms of Intitus is believing you can outhand your opponents. And we saw that a few times from G2 last week, and usually they would be able to outhand their opponents, but perhaps a bit of that MSI hangover just...
I think that's just called delusion.
Yeah, well, yeah. But G2 usually it's true. Usually they can take the trades. Here they're deciding against it in the early game as they get the Drake. So a trade in the top lane as Patrik tries to trade back onto Hansama, who does have 6 and will use the culling. Nature's Grass coming out as Juhan looks for the re-engage. Yike roots it up. But Mikyx was caught out as Yike jumps back in. Jackies and Caps trading in the mid lane, and Jackies wins it! The Intitus has come back to bite him. Yike dashes in, but the shield on Patrik with the barrier, he flashes away. Crescent Guard used, Patrik's still only 5. Needs about 3 more minions to get the 6. If he can get it off this wave, maybe he has time to chuck out the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Rangers focus on the wave. We'll get it in 1 minion. There it is, the 6. Yike still waiting in the wings. And GIANTX on the board through Jackies in mid.
Yeah, Ignar just hit 6, so G2 don't really want to overextend here. John is hoping Mikyx walks closer to that bush, but I mean, Zwyroo called it on the desk.
Yes,
the kill and no more.
Oh, he flashed into the edge of Ixal, is pulled back with the Impale. Dodged away from the Equalizer. The Antonio was looking for it, but Broken Blade was ready and waiting.
Yeah, you can see just why Skarner is so frustrated to deal with on the top side. The ability to escape, the ease of access he has to locking you up is absolutely insane, but Ignar going to be a pain.
Holds the wave, flashes away from the tidal wave, and he might hold a couple of those minions outside the tower. It doesn't matter, Patrik's here, so he'll be able to catch all of those CS.
They just spotted it that the reset has come through. I was curious if they were going to try and push forward. The ultimate was available for Patrik. Maybe they try and catch Mikyx, who has no flash himself, but just a little bit too far away, so they're going to back it off.
It's very easy in these sorts of situations to become a bit overeager. You're like, oh, we kind of won that last fight, but Hansama still had cleanse and flash. Maybe Mikyx, as you say, could have been the target. Have another look at this play in the mid lane.
Yeah, really nice stuff. So gets the lockup, manages to hit all 3 of the Vitals with the Q, and then just managing to flash away from the rocket in the end. Really nice stuff for Jackies. And Zwyroo called on the desk, said, look, man, Jackie's hands, especially on this Varus, have been really good, and Caps just hasn't had that since he came back. And now Jackie's getting that 1-up on the mid laner.
Manages to get the first kill of the game with it, about a 600 gold lead. Almost has the plate in the mid lane here as well. Doesn't quite fall. The Grub's helping out with that bit of extra true damage. Mikyx and Hansama have switched up towards the top side as they will force the Antonio away. Broken Blade matching Patrik in the bot lane. With Grubs up in 30 seconds, I think we know what the call from G2 is.
You say that, but Yike has just gone for the reset and is actually moving down towards what looks like the bottom half of the map. So I'm curious if it's just push, reset, and then try and shove through elsewhere. Because honestly, with the way GIANTX are set up, Jackies has control over mid. You're happy to just let Patrik stay in this bottom side because he can just ult up and kind of become that extra half man on the play, especially with Broken Blade having no teleport here.
And especially since you have quite high damage from your top in your mid lane, right? If there was more utility top, then maybe you'd wonder if you could take the exchange or take the fight around the Grubs. It looks like G2 are just backing out. Yike retreated down towards the bottom side. G2 relying on their mid game here against GIANTX, who have developed about 1,000 gold lead, will have 6 scrubs to naught. Drake up in a minute and a half, so GIANTX can try and contest that if they want.
Yeah, Patrik didn't want to stay underneath the tower because he was a little bit nervous of the flash and pale from Broken Blade maybe holding him there as Yike is able to come through, so now kind of stuck in no man's land. But we'll find Yike, who's forced to flash.
Good flash away by Yike. Would have been collapsed on very quickly. Did have the Crescent Guard, but didn't really have the reinforcements on their way to save him. Broken Blade gets a plate. Patrik is here to match once again. So, 11.5 minutes in. It's about an 800 gold lead for GIANTX. Antonio is matching this top lane. That's about, 15, 14 CS ahead of his lane opponent. But right now, Hansama and Mikyx are replacing the Skarner, and they will continue to push in that wave. The Antonio can clear under the tower relatively easily, has the equalizer in case a dive might materialize, but right now just wants to catch the wave as they crash towards his turret.
So it's kind of been this like slow burn where GX are slightly getting ahead, and it's not really what people would have expected from GIANTX coming into this. It hasn't exactly been the best of times for them, but Jackies has really been stepping up huge for GIANTX. He looked, mechanically sound in the Yone. He couldn't quite get the plays they wanted, but this Varus has been spectacular for him. And now getting more plates in the mid lane, getting a ton of control, and the fact you've got both Patrik on the Ashe and this Varus, you have a ton of utility that is coming from this double AD carry for a setup for a Rumble, a Maokai engage. You have to be so careful as G2 about how you play this, especially with the vision that Juhan offers with these saplings.
There's also gone double Giant's Belt Warden's Mail here on the Maokai. One of those could build into the Randuins alongside the Warden's Mail, the other into a Warmogs, but you don't need 2 Giant's Belts to build a Warmogs.
The problem is he's been playing TFT too much. And if you combine them, they do make a Warmogs.
That makes sense. Juhan yet to get their Crescent Guard going down. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow will land. Yike already down to half HP. Patrik trying to get in the circle, but can't quite get close enough. Hansama the next target for Patrik. Rangers focus into the piercing arrow from Jackies. Gets his 2nd kill of the game.
Sniped down where he stood. The damage coming through is absolutely insane. And now GIANTX, they get to move over towards the Dragon. Cap's going to get some damage onto the mid lane turret and toe, but I'm curious how much pressure they want to actually put onto the bot side here at GIANTX. Do they just look to dive with Mikyx in hands? But it doesn't look like it.
It's always a risk diving. And Lucian, Nami, they have a little bit of extra healing. Patrik doing a really good job of stepping away from the bubble. Patrik trading back in. Now taking a bit of damage as well. There's another plate to GIANTX, the Drake as well. Gold lead extends to about 1.3k. Maybe the dive now could happen as Juhan comes across. We'll clear this control ward. Yike is on the bot side of the map and will be able to react pretty quickly if the dive does begin.
So though, I think you're... Oh, hang on. They're going to try and look for Mikyx is very, very low. No ultimate for Juhan, though, means that I feel like this is more just allowing Patrik and Ignar to get pressure here. But I'd like to see them reset, because you've got Rift Shroud now about to spawn, and there is a world where Patrik and Ignar reset, you send them mid, you can get Rift Shroud and really blow up in this game as GIANTX, but looks like they're just more content to try and force these winning lanes for themselves right now.
The fact they're winning the lane and they have 6 scrubs just helps them out, really, right? You can just keep this pressure up. Mikyx's going to step towards the sapling. Gets away from the slow field. Hansama dashing in onto Patrik. Ignar's no mana. G2 could look for more, but in the end, Patrik and Ignar alongside Juhan will be able to escape. Caps was on his way down here as well.
Caps missing was kind of the alarm bell ringing for GIANTX, so they back it on up. Still can just continue to put pressure through these waves if they want to, but it looks like they are actually going to look for at least opening mid here to sniff out a Rift Herald play, which I think is great because the Antonio just crashing over to level 11 as well means he's very strong in any one of these plays, with the Andrew's Anguish finished as well.
We see Caps TPing to the top side here to make sure this wave didn't get shoved in. GIANTX opening through the top side of mid. With Patrik, Ignar and Juhan here, this Rift Herald will fall lickety split. Yike is on his way to try and react. He'll have to walk through a sapling to get there. Instead, he goes to the Wolves, and it's been all GIANTX in this early game. 6 scrubs, a Rift Herald, a Dragon as well. Will G2 try and take this fight? You got the Tsunami, you got the Culling, And you've got Patrik, who might be caught between a rock and a hard space as Caps comes in from the side. Valkyrie's in, the entire crystal arrow lands though, and Jackies is here to help out. Already Caps has got one. Broken Blade trying to ride across the wall to chase down more. Wild growth on Juhan will buy him a second. The good knockback as well will buy him more. Yike charges forward with the audacious charge into the slow. It's enough for G2 to find 2.
GIANTX just end up moving and the Antonio too quickly. They think, oh, we've got the Rift out, let's move the Antonio down to catch that wave in the bottom side, but it meant that G2 were like, cool, let's go for it. They TP'd Broken Blade up to match, and now he's going to get one more.
Brings the Impale down. Jackie's trying to get away. Has already burned the flash, but Broken Blade just shuts him down. He chucked a rock into his back and said, see you later. Broken Blade on the Skarner gets his first kill of the game.
This is why he's been banned a lot. The damage from that Skarner is just absurd, but it does leave you in a position where GIANTX coming back out onto the map. Mikyx in trouble.
Mikyx caught out, only has a heal, doesn't even use it. In fact, it might still be on cooldown. Mikyx down as GIANTX find their 4th of the game. 1,000 gold lead still for them. Caps coming across, does have the flash. Antonio has an equalizer, but I don't think you're going to get too much out of that. But by keeping Caps away from the mid lane, you do get a Rift Herald charge in, and this will be the turret falling. GIANTX open up the mid lane. They have the mites to help out this second charge for Shelly, as Hans Summer will kill her off after she slams her head into the tower.
Broken Blade going to get a tower topside in response. Just after getting that kill onto Jackies, he gets a little bit of alone time with it, but still a lot of towers now falling on the G2 side of the map, and it's just great play from Giants. Yes, they end up, you know, going a little bit too quickly onto that bottom side play, but overall responding well with the pick, and now Caps, he'll be fine here. I think the Antonio is just going to reset instead. And now it becomes a question of, okay, how do we try and continue this for GIANTX? Because you have a ton of control with Jackies on this top side, still as the teleport. You have good push in mid thanks to Lulu and Ashe. So I think looking for this play on top side into getting mid control, into moving towards Dragon, kind of gives you the next couple of steps that GIANTX want to go for. And that G2 will have to find some way of disrupting that if they want to try and bring this one back.
Broken Blade's finished his Warmogs, 2 items for Hans Summer as well, alongside the Imperial Mandate already complete for Mikyx. Skipping out on those tier 2 boots instead, getting the slightly enchanted one as Caps still has the flash, the Valkyrie away, but the Flame Spitter, he just stuck a drill in him and called him done as Caps falls the Antonio 2-0 with a bounty on his head.
Juhan used ulting over the wall to be like, I can help. It's just not needed. The Antonio absolutely destroying Caps on that one. And now with Dragon in 20 seconds, I mean, screw all the setup we were talking about. You can kind of just take it if you want to with the mid laner down, although Broken Blade having push on top side, looks like GIANTX feeling the need to respond there first.
We'll try and answer. Patrik was spotted out with that Scryer's Bloom. Yike will take the Blast Cone over the wall. They're trying to collapse onto Jackies. Broken Blade gets the Edge of Night into the Impale, but Ignar's here to respond, as is Juhan, and now Broken Blade is left to his own devices. Yike trying to get him from the side. The arrow flashed away from again, and Jackies gets his 4th. GIANTX react well to G2's aggression on top side.
Great route from Jackies right as the ultimate came through from Broken Blade, so he ends up moving nowhere. The ultimate from Broken Blade does nothing, and GIANTX are able to collapse. Now they can move over towards the Dragon, where you can see the Antonio already kind of waiting there, but G2 still putting pressure in the mid lane as Jackies had to go back to base.
GIANTX will get the push here in mid though, and then can work their way down towards their Drake. Will be their 2nd of the game, 2,000 the gold lead now. We talked a lot about the G2 MSI hangover. Well, I'm afraid to tell you, if a hangover lasts more than a week, you might be dealing with something else, Dagda. Right now, G2, although they are playing well at moving around the map and trying to get gold in sides, GIANTX are responding well to them, and G2 just continue to fall further and further behind.
And it's little mistakes from G2 that are causing this. Overextending to try and make the top play, going back to bite them. Caps failing on the 1v1 in the mid lane. It's kind of these individual errors that are coming back to bite them versus how they're actually playing the map. Like G2 have slowed down GIANTX a little bit, but GX still coming out with a fairly sizable lead. And Jackie's having Juhan with him on this bottom side push makes it easy for him to back away, even if Broken Blade tries to step up and contest.
Juhan looking to steal away that red buff. as G2 do get a little bit of push in mid.
I think for GIANTX though, this is a resounding success. Obviously, look, it's G2 always going to be good, but I mean, just the way that they are actually playing out this game is really cool to see. Jackie's looking fantastic. Being able to play around his pressure has been spectacular. Patrik and Ignar moving around the map to help support when G2 are overextended in these different positions. And even the Antonio finding that flash play onto Caps on that bottom side, like punishing overextensions from G2. This is something that was definitely missing from GIANTX for a long time, and it feels like that confidence is starting to come through for them.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. I'm not usually one to talk about builds because I assume pro players know better than me, and 9 times out of 10 they do. Ignar's built Mikhail's Crucible, and I'm trying to work out what it's for. Now, it does give you a little bit of a heal, but Impale is a suppression as Patrik has to flash away from the culling. It doesn't cleanse airborns as we see the re-engage coming out from Juhan. Broken Blade looking for the Impale, but he's locked up, knocked up, and Patrik's trying to take him out. Broken Blade will flash away. The Equalizer finds him, though, as the Antonio's on a killing spree. Who cares what the Mikhail's blessings for? As GIANTX find the kill on the enemy top. And actually are turning up towards the Baron here. I think it might be just to get top control. With both the AD carries in the mid lane, it looks like they're not going to go for the big purple work.
They will do it very quickly. Double, oh well, I was going to say Leandri's on top side, Kraken Slayer on Ashe as well, just means that you'll take that objective very quickly. But as you say, just happy to set up vision, get control for the Antonio on that top end of the map. G2 trying to threaten mid, but you still have to be very careful of the flash engage from Juhan as Hansama steps up, has cleanse.
Back on the front line as well, GIANTX their finger over the trigger, but not yet pulling it, as G2 will get mid lane prio. GIANTX taking their time, the ward over the wall. It does spot Jackie's, he still manages to tag Hansama for almost half his health bar. Mikyx chipped away at as well by the saplings. Oh, Jackie's, this guy is on form in summer, continues to hit the arrows, obviously helped out a little bit by the vision from that control ward, but it was cleared out by G2.
But it does mean that G2 can't stick around to set up vision in the way they would have liked to, and now, Arrow. Oh, that's a shot!
They're looking, the chain of corruption, follow up, Jackie's brings the hail of arrows! Will Mikyx avoid it? Flash away, Jackie's, Mikyx! The Comet! Even the skies are against G2 as the Comet finds its mark. And now GIANTX turn their eyes towards the Baron.
And just like that, the combo between Patrik and Jackie's, the long range, snipes down Mikyx, but G2, do they want to try and get more here? Broken Blade does have the TP, which is why we're seeing the Antonio start to walk up. There's the teleport into the mid lane for the Skarner.
Baron down to 4,000. Yike here looking for that smite. He flashes in. Crescent Guard, polymorph, knockback. He still gets it! He still somehow gets it, and G2 somehow get out. Hansama and Caps limping away. Broken Blade still in the mid lane, but Yike has bought them some more time.
There was no more CC to try and keep Yike out of the pit. Juhan had to be in the pit to try and keep the Baron alive, so Yike, realizing that, comes in and flashes into the pit as he sees it go low, but just managing to get barely in, and the smite comes down that little bit, only 200 HP left, and Yike swipes it from underneath their noses.
For GIANTX, what a dagger through the heart that's got to be. Yike manages to secure the Baron. It slows everything down as well, which just gives G2 more time to scale. See Juhan smiling about it. You got to in the moment. GIANTX still have, you know, a Soul Wing-Con there on their second Drake. Next up in 25 seconds time, G2 will use this Baron more to delay than anything else. Will help them get prio in lanes if they want to buff up their minions.
Yeah, I think the biggest point is just kind of keeping control over the mid-wave and buying time for, hey, a third item come through on Lucian, on Caps, and finding those moments where maybe you can threaten side lanes a little bit more. It's the Antonio. Not again! Not again!
The flashman is just gonna die! After a disappointing week one, the Antonio is here, and vamos! Go GIANTX, the Impale landing onto 2. Ignar killed off first. Juhan trying to get away as well with a phase rush, but he's not back and locked up by G2. Plays on 2 points of the map. Don't pay off for GIANTX.
Every time we see G2 bleed, though, it's Broken Blade who's stepping up and trying to create that bandage to keep them in the game. Yes, we got the smite from Yike, but we saw the Camille game from Broken Blade. We've seen him on the Cassante try desperately to bring these games back. I mean, he is the one person that was the designated driver, it looks like, at MSI, because he is clear-headed and trying so hard to carry these games.
He's doing such a good job of it in these moments as well. G2 1 and 2 in the LEC. Obviously, expectations are they make playoffs. As Broken Blade charges in onto the Antonio, equalizer down, buys himself a second with the stopwatch. Jackie's collapsing as well, and G2 call off the play. For GIANTX, a win here would be massive. 0-3 in their first week, and they're in prime position to take the victory here. But things are just delayed and delayed and delayed. Lose the Baron. The Red Bull Baron power play only 1.2k, but for G2, that's 5 minutes, 6 minutes that they have bought for themselves. The Drake secured as well means that GIANTX aren't on sole point. Just continue to buy yourself a little bit more time. Yike level 14 to only level 12 here from Juhan, but has a couple of reinforcements to try and help him out. Summer coming across as well. Cap's still pushing in a side lane, 2.5 items complete for him.
And that's the thing, it's about trying to open up the map where G2 can play G2 things, right? Push in on top, create pressure, stop GIANTX from having as much control as they had over the course of the game. Even having Broken Blade here, feels like Caps may be the bait dangled in front of the Antonio if he's up here, but they're actually going to send Jackies to match it. So G2 going to back away as soon as they see that it's not the Antonio on the top side, but might find Juhan instead.
They will find Juhan. The Antonio can react. Broken Blade coming in with Ishtal's impact. Doesn't get close enough. Throws a rock. Ignar here to help the Antonio, but you can't really help him through the suppression. The Chaos does nothing for you here. Another kill to G2, and it's Broken Blade setting it up.
It's the target selection from G2. They know the Antonio used that flash to just kill Caps, so they can go back and revisit him. And this time it's Broken Blade who invests his own to find it. But again, it's not like you have an objective that you can really pick up here as G2 on the map. Jackies can still clear out these waves with the Baron buff gone. So it's just a nice pick, but is it really worth the flash on Broken Blade?
That's a question that will be answered in about 2 minutes' time as the arrow goes down and Summer dashes away from it. Vision from the ward helping him have a little bit more foresight to make sure that he didn't get caught by that. He doesn't reset though, is at 3 items right now. Baron up in 1 minute 40 as Broken Blade looks for the flank position again. Charging forward, looking for Patrik as the upheaval as well, throws a rock at Patrik and doesn't find too much more.
Nice job from GIANTX, just exit up towards that top side. And this is kind of where we've seen Skarner be at his most threatening across the different regions, is when he's able to find these flanks, find moments where he's out of vision and catch onto the backline very quickly, then impale them, drag them out of safe positions. But not going to be the case this time around. And GIANTX, again, I think if you just wait it out, play for the Barons in a minute's time, look towards the Dragon in 2 minutes, this is where they can really start to come alive, especially because we've seen how much damage the Antonio can do in fights, and you've got 2 AD carries that are set up perfectly to enable it.
GIANTX have fallen behind in gold now. About 500 their deficit after being in the lead for the majority of the game. You have a 6-1 Varus at 3.5 items. You've got Patrik, who just finished his Kraken Slayer to go alongside that, finished one of his items. Now has IE Kraken Slayer and Phantom Dancer. I can't remember which one he just had. I think he had the Kraken Slayer, and the Phantom Dancer, and now he's finished the IE. But it changed as I was looking at it, which is, makes it harder for me.
It's also been a long, 3 games, 3 hours. It's been a...
Yeah, 3 hours is a huge workload, I'm just so tired after casting 3 games. The problem is people won't realize that's sarcasm in that moment as Broken Blade on the front line here. Warmogs, Frozen Heart, and the Kainic Rukern on him. Makes him very difficult to get through. Even with the arrow connecting, they can't even break the shield of the Kainic Rukern. Don't even touch his health bar. The arrow, a shortish cooldown at level 14, would want to get towards the 3rd rank in that ultimate as Summer dashes in, the culling! Immediate wild growth on Patrik, chain of corruption going down as well. Summer will cleanse away the equalizer. Gonna do a little bit of work onto Broken Blade. Tidal wave coming out as well as Mikyx keeps everyone at bay, but now he's locked up, isolated from the rest of his team. As G2 are fighting a 4v5 here, Caps continues to push in a side lane, will crack the inhibitor tower as GIANTX turn their eyes towards the Baron, but what are you losing for this?
Yike, Sellers Flash and Smite. Is this going to be a repeat as Caps continues his march through the base?
No vision yet. Control ward now goes down, is cleared. Yike can try and get in, but the Antonio, he's made A meal of this so far as he dashes in. Yike getting chipped away by Patrik. Crescent Guard down the flame spitter. Yike gets over the wall and survives for long enough. But Caps is on the Nexus towers. Can they stop the ports? Can they stop the Baxter TP out? GIANTX get back. The TP from the Antonio gets him out. Caps locked up. The Nexus tower won't survive as G2 have broken the base of GIANTX, but GIANTX have the Baron.
And now they're going to potentially lose top tower here as Broken Blade moves towards it. Jackie should be able to clear out the wave as he moves up, but GIANTX, they fumble it a bit. Don't actually go for the reset. Don't send anyone to match Caps. And it means that he blows open the Nexus turrets and they lose the Dragon.
I mean, it's all on this Baron for GIANTX, right? Can you get enough out of this? The Antonio TP'd in the last play, doesn't have it. Now he's pushing out bot. Jackie's is answering top. GIANTX will get a singular tier 2 in the mid lane, but that turret scores 7-4 in favor of G2. Hansama no cleanse, but Patrik doesn't want to go for the arrow when Hansama still has that dash. They're looking for a second tier 2. Pushing through bot where the super minions are spawning makes sense. You have the Baron buff. Your minions will push in with the help of the Antonio. G2 starting to react. Broken Blade is here, but I don't know if he can really defend against 4 members of GIANTX. The second tier 2, the target, and GIANTX will crack it. Jackie's TPing in. Double cannon wave for GIANTX. They have the equalizer, they have the arrow, they have every tool at their disposal. Nature's Grasp, the first one to be used. Yike tanks it. Broken Blade gets hit with one as well. Yike still has the Crescent Guard, but takes a chunk. Equalizer down. Yike ticking won't be enough to kill him. Juhan gets onto the backline, but it's only Mikyx, and Broken Blade slams him into a wall and puts him in his place. Hansama on a killing spree. Patrik having to flash away. G2 looking for a little bit more. The Antonio opens up onto Caps. Broken Blade. He's drifting, man. Play the music. It's Tokyo here. Is G2 able to keep GIANTX from breaking open the inhibitor? Recalls come out. They still have a minute on the Baron. The Antonio scraps shields and walks away. Jackie's back in base now. Broken Blade still on the chase. Ishtar's impact won't get him close enough, but maybe enough to get the rock. Doesn't get the slow.
He's just happy to keep chasing, even if he gets poked out. Has the Warmogs now up and available, so Yike now going through as well. They really want to force him to walk the whole way home, so then G2 can walk this wave right up to their base.
And just like 30 seconds ago, I said they had a minute on the Baron. I was expecting resets into push, but you can't do that if you're being chased by G2. And so now that Baron's going to expire before GIANTX really have another opportunity to push in with it. G2 will take away some of this jungle as well. And it's about 3 minutes. What are those wolves doing, man? They have a vendetta.
My brain went, is there a Nico? Is that what's happened? Nico is a wolf.
Some sort of weird vendetta from the wolves against Jackies. He has Edge of Night. Broken Blade flashes into the Impale. He broke the Edge of Night with his W. It's beautiful from Broken Blade. And once again, he shows his class. They kill off the enemy mid, they'll take a tier 2 of their own.
And Caps, he's looking for the reset, can TP in towards this play, G2. The Nexus is exposed. They know they've got 40 seconds now until Jackie's is up. This is a 4 versus 5 with no towers, and GIANTX need to defend.
It's 2-4 item AD carries as well. Both Hansama and Caps have hit that break point. Juhan on the front line, but he melts like butter. Wild growth enough to keep him alive for now. The redemption coming out as well as they try and turn it back onto Yike. He puts the Crescent Guard down. Patrik is dancing his way around the fight, but he just can't get enough damage as Hansama dashes in, and Patrik has to pop the heal. Almost caught out by Cancer Flash. Shut down. Patrik falls. Juhan dashes back in. He gets one, but they need to kill off Caps, and it doesn't look like they can do it. It's only Ignar and Juhan left alive. Broken Blade slams Juhan into the remnants of his Nexus turret as G2 pull out the win from absolutely nowhere.
Jackie's head in hand there. GIANTX knew they had G2 dead to rights, but 1 or 2 slip-ups, the Baron call, Caps in a side lane, being an absolute menace, and G2 just barely managed to claw that one back.
And for GIANTX, you're now sitting 0-4. Not an enviable position to be in. For Jackie's, he's had a great split so far as well. But once again, he is not on the Kia Player of the Game vote. You can vote at LEC on X for one of these G2 players. Broken Blade, Caps, or Hansama are your options. I think Caps did a great job in side lanes. think Broken Blade did a great job of setting up a place for his team.
Yeah, BB, an absolute menace on the Skarner. And honestly, it has been BB kind of the one shining star for G2. It feels like the moment we've seen mistakes from several other people, but Broken Blade has really been the player to watch when it comes to G2. So shout out to him. He's had a fantastic time this Summer Split.
Well, he has. Be hearing, I believe, from Caps in just a moment's time. Before we do that, I have to think about tomorrow. Another day of games. G2 will be taking on Rogue. Vitality against Heretics. You've got Carmine Core, BDS to round out the day. But before that, obviously, SK versus Fnatic are two undefeated teams battling it out at the top of the table.
I'm so excited for that game. I mean, especially after we saw what SK's bot lane could do earlier today. Like, that Kai'Sa performance was sick. And Noah on an absolute monstrous performance at the moment as well. It feels like those are the two to watch.
I agree. I'm so glad in your tier list you put SK in C for Korean as the ranking, right? It was very well done by you. You definitely haven't got any flack for that over the last few days. I'm sorry, Dagda, I had to do it to you in honor of our good friend Crepo. He keeps reminding you of it in Discord chats. Yeah, great performance all round by G2 to pick up the win in the end. Commiserations to GIANTX. Laure is standing by with Caps in our Marriott Bonvoy check.
Hate you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Medic. To be honest, I would have left the stage as well. This joke was really, really bad. But anyway, Caps, thank you so much for joining me after this game. What do we say about this? I'll let you do the feedback here.
Yeah, it was definitely not the best game. I think, yeah, we had a tough last week, so I wanted to have a better win this week, but so far it was looking a bit shaky still. I obviously had I messed up a bit, so yeah, we'll look to do better tomorrow. I
mean, of course, but people are talking about the fact that you come back from MSI hangover, issues, readapting and everything. Do you think there's any truth to this?
I mean, I think we have a much better read, I think, on things this week. And I mean, I think the fact that I died so much and we still won the game definitely is like a good sign, right? Because I think we were close some of the games last week, but we just didn't have like the last push. But I think, you know, it's not the game we're happy with, or like not a game I'm happy with, but it's a win. And we needed, I think, 3 or 4 of those to make it out, so.
Yeah, but there's dominance associated to G2 and a certain level of play that we expect from you guys. But how hard is it to come back from international events when you don't have a lot of time in between to get ready, readjusting to the league, maybe being tired after that? How do you readjust to all this?
I mean, I think we had a lot of good takeaways from MSI, and we like learned a lot of like lessons. But I think we they're like, I guess, bigger lessons, or like. Yeah, I think, for example, if I just die like 5 times, then it doesn't really matter too much a lot of the other things we do, right? Because it's just going to make it a lot harder. And I think similar to some of the other, like last week, we were just way too hectic in a lot of our comps and a lot of like silly mistakes. So then it doesn't really matter too much about the super specific things. Yeah. So yeah, we will do better for sure.
I still think it's strange to see you guys do this type of silly mistakes, as you say. How do you explain it? The fact that you cannot focus sometimes, or maybe there's going to be some sloppy games?
I mean, I think it's just, a lot of it is just, I mean, some new champions, some matchups. I tried to fight the Varus and like sadly didn't make it out, but it's obviously not a matchup I played a lot. So definitely a lot of new matchups coming in this summer, and just have to get more used to them.
What do you think of the new matchups that we've seen? Because I know that in the LPL, for instance, there's a lot of AD mids coupled with AP junglers. Not something that we see too much in the LEC so far, but what do you think of the shift we've seen in mid lane and how it's going to shape the rest of the league in this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a huge change since the MSI, and I think while we don't see it as much, we still see it quite a bit, I think, in Europe, and especially in scrims. So it changes a lot of how we practice and how we see things, right? So yeah, we just have to get used to it. We have to figure out like where we want to be in this meta, and I do think we have a good understanding right now. It does makes it harder when I die a lot, but tomorrow I won, and then it will be an easy win.
You were talking about learnings from MSI. Could you give me some specifics on this? Because you have been playing for such a long time. You and G2 have been playing together with this lineup for 2 years now. What are the learnings specifically from an event like MSI?
I think a big learning for us was like closing out games. I think we were quite far ahead in some of the later games at MSI, but then we were either too nervous or like we were not playing with the same like arrogance, I guess, so to say, as we usually do. Like I think in Europe we would play like way more aggro, but then maybe because it's T1, maybe because they are also playing like they're not making like silly mistakes again. They're not just getting caught out all over the place. They're actually making us like work for it. And I think we weren't able to close out the games well enough. So I think that's something we can learn a lot from, and also just from our practice. Like if we get really far ahead, we can take it the easy way and just like probably throw our items at them, right, and we will win. But we can also close it out a bit cleaner that maybe we would need against teams like T1.
All right, well, let's see what you guys can show tomorrow. Before I let you go, we've been honoring FLICKR throughout the day, and we'll keep on doing so throughout the weekend. And we've been asking players to do some memes, and to do some memes that FLICKR was happy and famous for throughout his career. So production, please show me what we have selected for caps. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Caps, we know how good you are on the Rift. Maybe you want to show us how good you are on stage. We have a yoga mat, guys. Don't worry, we're not going to break Caps. Oh. I can take the mic. Maybe it's going to be easier for you guys. But please, honor us. Okay, that was equally amazing and dangerous. Thank you so much, Caps. I hope you're going to be okay. Sjokz, take it away for PGL and BB. Back to you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Yo, I think he...